sun breaks through the morning haze, a golden thread that lights my ways. Each step I take, a brand new chance to join the song, to dance the dance. On the path of light I will go, with faith in my heart I'll let it
Light of Faith Christian Academy in Bothell, Washington. 16 stars. Meet the Light of Faith Christian Academy rocketry, powered by faith, fueled by curiosity, launched by a passion for STEM learning. Ready to go on pad 16. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, start.
Hello, my name is Anya, and today I will be talking about psychology. First, what is psychology and why is it important? Psychology is a major branch of medicine focusing on mental health, and it is important because it helps people cope with emotional, mental, and psychological challenges. You can kind of think as psychologists as therapists, but with doctorate degrees that focus on different branches of psychology. Here, I will list some of the major branches of psychology. First, there's clinical psychology, which helps treat mental health disorders. Then, there's cognitive psychology, which studies thinking and major decision making. Then, there's developmental psychology, which looks at human growth over time. Then there's social psychology, which looks at relationships and interactions between family and friends. And last but not least, there's behavioral psychology, which explains habits and learning. Now, I will give an example of what a psychologist would look like in her or his day at work. Let's take an example of a psychologist that studies social psychology. Maybe they would help a patient with family problems, like if they're not able to sleep because of it, or if they're getting anxiety or they're getting stressed. Now, you might be wondering, why would a person who is having family problems go to a psychologist instead of a therapist? What's the difference between the two? Well, psychologists are for more advanced problems, and a therapist is for problems that are less advanced. Now let's talk about the mind and behavior and how the brain controls emotions and thoughts. Emotions come from the limbic system, which controls fear and pleasure, and the hippocampus, which helps us remember past emotional experiences, both good and bad. For example, you can think of maybe an experience a long time ago that you still remember. Your hippocampus helps you remember those. Now let's talk about our prefrontal cortex. Our prefrontal cortex is where thinking, planning, and major decision-making happens. These brain areas send messages to each other using neurotransmitters, which are tiny brain chemicals like dopamine, which is linked to motivation and pleasure, and serotonin, which is linked to mood and calmness. Now let's talk about our conscious mind versus our unconscious mind. Our conscious mind is what we are aware of, our thoughts and our focus. And our unconscious mind is what happens in the background and helps us remember things and habits. This helps us guide our behavior every day without us even knowing. You can kind of think of it as an iceberg. The part that's above the water is the conscious mind, and the part that's below the water is our unconscious mind. Now let's talk about why some memories fade. If you've ever cleaned your closet before, you'll know that you have to get rid of all the clutter in order to make space for new important things. In the same way, our brain kind of works like a closet. It gets rid of all the unimportant memories to make space for new important ones. Your brain is also more likely to remember things that you find interesting, like maybe something funny or something interesting or even scary. And if you find something that's boring or not as interesting, your brain is not as likely to remember those things. And over time, it will let it go. Now, what if there's something that you don't find very interesting that you have to memorize? For example, sometimes some people find some topics not very interesting that they might need to memorize for a test. Well, there are many strategies that can help you memorize those things. Like one of the most common ones are like notes or flashcards or quizzing yourself. Now let's talk about the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. They both sound similar, but they are different careers. Psychologists do PhD or PsyD, which stands for Doctor of Psychology, and that usually takes 8 to 10 years. And psychiatrists usually do MD or DO, which stands for Doctor of Medicine, and usually it takes 12 plus years. Now, one of the biggest differences between these two is that psychologists mainly focus on therapy and behavior, while psychiatrists mainly focus on medicine. Now, where do they work? Psychologists work in schools, clinics, and research centers, while psychiatrists work in hospitals and private practice areas. Now, like I said, psychologists mainly focus in therapy and behavior, and they cannot prescribe medication in most states, but there are some states in which they can prescribe medication, and I will be talking more about that in the next slide. And psychiatrists can prescribe medication. Now, psychologists can prescribe medication in Louisiana, New Mexico, Idaho, Illinois, and Iowa, but they can only do this with special training, with extra training and a special license. Now let's talk about U.S. military settings. So they can do it in the U.S. They can also prescribe medication in U.S. military, but once again, they need extra training. And the same in the Indian Health Service, except they need to do it under federal supervision. Now, in all the other U.S. states, they cannot prescribe medication. Now let's talk about some common psychological disorders. Some common ones are ADHD, OCD, anxiety, and depression. And some treatment methods to these are therapy, behavioral strategies, and medication. Now over here, I have a video. This video is an attention test, and let's see how you do. How do I stop it? And then the answer to this, I'll say that our brain usually focuses on things that they're assigned to, the tasks that they're assigned to. Okay. 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 Now you guys might be wondering what this has to do with psychology. Well, this shows that if you did not see the gorilla, most people won't see the gorilla, but this relates to psychology because you can see that the brain usually focuses on the tasks it is assigned to, and through research, psychologists have figured this out. Now, I have a joke for you guys. Why did the psychologist go to the park? To study mood swings. Okay, well, thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.
Hello, my name is Arangsa, and today I'll be taking you to the beginning of America and how it came to be. So let's go back to the time of the Ice Age, when the sea levels had started decreasing, and it exposed a bridge of land called the Bering Strait. People such as the Native Americans, they began crossing this land, and they began adapting to the new environment by constructing social structures and developing new tools. And these people, they lived there for many years until we come to 1000 CE with a Viking named Leif Erikson. He had just left his home Greenland, which had been discovered by his father Eric the Red. When he came to this land, he named it Canada, which is nowadays Canada. He named it Vinland because of the grapes that they have found there. And this journey made Leif Erikson the first European to set foot on American land and to arrive 500 years before Christopher Columbus, who came in 1492. Christopher Columbus, he was an Italian explorer who came in 1492. He had wanted to find a trading route to go to Asia instead of going all around Africa. And he ended up landing around Bahamas, but he thought he landed in Asia, so he named the people the Indians. And then we move a little bit more forward to 1499, where we have a young man by the name of Amerigo Vespucci. He started wondering about the lands where Christopher Columbus went, and he was wondering if those lands was really Asia. He was wondering, is it Asia or is it something else? So he decided to go see for himself, and he discovered that it was a whole new continent, and it was named America in honor of Amerigo Vespucci, of him being more curious and identifying that land. And so he ended up traveling around the coast of South America, and he discovered that all this was really something new. So more people became inspired, and we have many more to come, but I will not be telling them in this presentation, but there's many more. On the other side of the world, we have the English. The English were facing persecution in England because of the way they were in the church. King Henry III, he wanted to have the church according to how he wanted it, to his own desires, not by how the Lord directed it. And he started changing a whole bunch of different things, and because of that, it was getting corruptive. And in the meantime, we have somewhere else in America, where we have the New World, the first permanent English settlement, which was Jamestown. This settlement was set up by John Smith, who made sure that everybody did a part in this Jamestown colony. And he had everybody do, as the scripture says in 2 Thessalonians 3:10. For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. So basically, everybody had a part to do, and if they wanted to be a part of it, they all had to work hard for it. And everybody in this town faced hardships, especially since they were in a new land and they were not adjusted to this new land. So a lot of people passed away. There was especially famines, diseases, and so everybody was having a hard time. But in the end, they were all able to survive. And now we go back to the people who were having a hard time in the church. They were called the separatists. They decided that it was better for them to just leave the church, so that's why they named themselves the separatists. So they decided originally to go to Virginia, the Jamestown colony that I mentioned before, but because of a storm, they were swept away from that, and they ended up landing in nowadays Massachusetts. Before they arrived and got off the ship, they decided to sign the first government paper called the Mayflower Compact. And this paper was basically signed by 41 male passengers, on November 21st. And they just wanted to set this as their first government so that everybody had their part to play, so nobody would just go wander around. And as I said, this winter was not very friendly. More than 102 passengers passed away because of the harsh winter that they faced. And thankfully, there was some Native Americans that were living there, one of them being Squanto. He thankfully had gone to England before this time, so he had known a bit of English. So he was able to translate for the Native Americans and the Indians. So both groups were able to help one another and giving, like for example, Squanto helped the English in how to grow crops, how to find food that they were able to eat, like plants. And this was very encouraging for both groups, and so they decided to celebrate their first Thanksgiving. And they were very grateful to God for the people that He sent to both groups. And their first Thanksgiving was in 1621, around November and September. As the time passed, the British and the French, they began having some disputes over who was to own the Ohio River. And this tension was getting stronger, especially since not all the Native Americans were friendly. So that was making it worse. And on May 28th, they had their first war, the French and Indian War. And this war lasted for about 7 years, and it was a hard time, and it ended up leaving Britain in debt. And so they had to put taxes on the people, and the people did not appreciate that. Because like I said before, they left England to be able to have freedom in the New World. And they started doing protests against the taxes, like for example, the Boston Tea Party, where basically the people dressed up as Native Americans, and they dumped about 92,000 pounds of tea. And so they were really upset about what the British were doing to them. And on July 4th, 1776, the colonies had had enough of all this, and so they adopted the Declaration of Independence, which basically broke Britain's control over them all the colonies, and now they were free. They had liberty, they had their rights, and as the years went by, each colony became a state. And the next year, we have Commander-in-Chief George Washington. He came up to a lady named Betsy Ross, and he asked her to sew the first American flag. And as you see here in this picture, we have 13 stars and 13 stripes. That number 13 represents the 13 colonies in remembrance of all the colonies that we had in the beginning. And as the years pass by, we see that there's more stars added up. And that is, as each state comes, is how each star is added up. So we have the 50 states, so there's 50 stars. And the 13 stripes remain the same in remembrance of the colonies. And the people began to have they still had fear in their hearts over the British, and fear that they would take over them again. And so they began to start worrying that we need a stronger government. We need something to be able to support us and would be able to be more stronger for us. And so they came up with the first constitution, which was called the Articles of Confederation. But unfortunately, this article, this document, it was not strong enough. Like for example, it did not let them put taxes on the people, which was a problem because with taxes, they asked people for money, and the people were not able to give that money because the Articles of Confederation said no. And especially since with the war, the French and Indian War, they were in debt, so they needed money, but they weren't able to. So they decided to make a better constitution, which was called the United States Constitution, which gave them a stronger government and divided the government into 3 branches. We have the legislative branch, which makes the laws. We have the executive branch, which enforces that law. And then we have the judicial branch, which interprets them, which basically gives them out and makes sure that all these laws are brought into justice and is equal for everybody. The people who made the documents that I've said so far were called the Founding Fathers. This group of men were believers, such as James Madison, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and many more. They all wanted to make sure that their country was set in Christianity and was set on what was right. And they began deciding that they needed a leader. So they called their first president George Washington. And that is how we have the president today as Donald Trump. So over the years, they elected a new president each time. And as I said before, each state was coming in. The first state that was ratified into the Constitution was Delaware, and the last state was Hawaii. So as we keep going, the years pass, and everything is growing more as the years go by. And then we go to 1791 with James Madison. He was one of the first founding fathers. He decided to make something that was called the Bill of Rights, which basically was what made these laws called amendments, which made sure that everybody in the United States was given their right and freedom. Like, for example, the First Amendment said that everybody has the freedom of speech, and everybody has their freedom of whatever religion they have. So basically just giving the rights to everybody, that everybody is equal and everybody has a right. And that's why a lot of people came and are still coming today to the United States to be able to be free and worship God especially as well. And so this is how America came to be, and it's important that we know how America became United States and how we are to be today. And we are to thank God for the freedom that we have, and especially to remember the soldiers and people who gave their lives for us to be able to be standing here today. And that is the end of my presentation. Before I close off, I have my motto. I dressed up as Betsy Ross. As I said, the first lady to sew the American flag, first American flag. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about energy transfer, specifically the different processes of biogeochemical cycles, cellular energetics, and ecological pyramids. First, let's look at biogeochemical cycles. Biogeochemical cycles are cycles such as the water cycle, nitrogen cycle, and carbon cycle. These cycles help regulate and recycle the transfer of these non-renewable minerals and compounds. This can also be seen as Mother Nature's way of regulating and recycling the transfer of these minerals. Now let's look at the water cycle. The water cycle consists of 4 distinct parts. First is evaporation. Water rises up as hot water vapor due to the sun's heating, and through the stomata in the process of transpiration, water rises up from the underside of plants' leaves to cool and condense in the atmosphere through condensation. This forms clouds, and once it accumulates enough water vapor, it eventually rains back down water to the soil, plants, and water bodies. Now let's look at the carbon cycle. The carbon cycle consists of 4 parts as well. First is respiration and photosynthesis. Respiration, photosynthesis, I'll go into deeper detail later, but they give and take carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The organic matter and waste from these organisms is stored as coal and petroleum underground and is used by industries and factories to return that carbon dioxide back to the atmosphere. Now let's look at the nitrogen cycle. The nitrogen cycle is mainly for plants, since animals breathe air which mainly consists of nitrogen. 70% of it is nitrogen. The plants have special bacteria on their roots which fixate that nitrogen for them to use to survive. And there are also unusable forms of nitrogen, such as ammonia, as is shown here. This is converted to usable forms of nitrogen through nitrification and special bacteria as well. It is reversed by denitrification to return it to the to return into the atmosphere. Now let's look at cellular energetics. The macromolecules formed by the hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen recycled throughout the atmosphere is used to create and manipulate energy for the cell's needs. The main way this is done is cellular respiration. There are 4 main parts that you need to know for cellular respiration. First is the outer membrane. This is the outer covering of the whole organelle. Then there is the inner membrane. This inner membrane is the part which covers the matrix, which is the inside of the cell, which houses the DNA and all things which regulate the processes of the mitochondria. There's also the intermembrane space, which is space between these membranes. Now let's go on to the first part of cellular respiration. First is glycolysis. There are 4. This is the first step and generates 2 ATP, which is a form of energy, and carries it to different processes, and to NADH, which can carry energy and electrons to different processes. First, we start off with glucose, which is a 6-carbon molecule. The names of these molecules will get very confusing, but you need to keep in mind the number of carbon molecules. Through the input of 2 ATP, and as I mentioned earlier, these can carry energy, it is transformed into an unstable form with 2 extra phosphate groups. You need to know about phosphate groups since they make the molecule unstable. When it's unstable, it wants to divide it in 2, and so it divides into 2 3-carbon molecules. Those 3 carbon molecules undergo a series of processes to remove the phosphate group to give it to NADH, which I mentioned also can carry electrons as a form of energy. This happens twice to form 2 pyruvate. This pyruvate undergoes a special process called pyruvate oxidation. In this, pyruvate removes one of its carbon dioxide molecules to release energy, which is stored by the NADH, as is shown here. But then there's a special carrier molecule known as coenzyme A, which is represented as CoA on the graph, and it carries it to the next process known as the Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle combines that 2-carbon molecule with a 4-carbon molecule to bring us back to a 6-carbon molecule. With that 6-carbon molecule, it removes 2 carbon molecules again to bring us 3 NADH, which can carry energy, and another type of molecule which can carry energy known as FADH2. Now we're back to a 4-carbon molecule. Now, as you recall, we had 2 of these 2-carbon groups. So we can repeat the cycle since we're back to a 4-carbon molecule. Now we're going to use all of those NADH and FADH2 in this final process of cellular respiration. All of those molecules release their energy to push H+ ions, which want to be in balance between these 2 membranes, but they use energy to push it here, and between the 2 membranes, in the intermembrane space, as I mentioned earlier. Oxygen, which as we know forms water through H2O, pulls one H+ ion to form water, and that causes a chain reaction which pulls all of them through a special enzyme known as ATP synthase. ATP synthase, through the pulling of those H+ ions, generates ATP, which generates energy. So now that we can see how carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen is recycled throughout ecosystem and how energy is created in cells and organisms, let's look at how that energy is recycled throughout the ecosystem. So for that, here I have my model. My model correlates between this image and these cups. The water will represent our energy level. So first we start off with the sun, which represents the energy which is inputted into the ecosystem. Then we have the plants, which represent the maximum amount of energy that will happen in that ecosystem, since it is the organism which absorbs that energy from the sun through photosynthesis. Then there are plants which eat those, called primary consumers. These plants don't get all of the energy through that the plants get, because the plants also need that energy for their own internal processes such as digestion and reproduction and other internal processes. This is represented as heat on the graph. So then the energy continues to decrease at a 10% rate, as shown here. It goes from 100% to 10% to 1% and then to 0.1% at the top of the ecosystem, the tertiary consumers. These can't have as much biomass and as much energy because they need to eat these and they don't get all of that energy. There's usually less biomass for the top consumers. So now let's study about different types of those pyramids. Even though it may seem weird, especially since I just showed you my model, there can be times when there are more of those consumers than there are producers. This can happen because when the sun inputs energy, there are a lot of producers which can synthesize it, which means the consumers can reproduce and there can be a lot of consumers as well to eat them. Eventually, the population of the plants will decrease and there will be more consumers than plants. Thank you for listening, and I would like to give credit to these websites.
Hello everyone, my name is Anna and today I'm going to be talking about black holes. First of all, how are black holes formed? Black holes are commonly formed through supernovas. To better understand supernovas, we have to understand the hydrostatic equilibrium. The hydrostatic equilibrium is a delicate balance in a star between gravity trying to crush the star together and fusion happening in the star's core that goes against this gravity. Now at one point the gravity wins and particles start getting so close to each other, even touching each other. This creates a point of infinite density and then that area collapses into a black hole. Now to better understand black holes, we should know about the types of them. The first type is a primordial black hole. These black holes are very, very tiny, no greater than the size of a coin. Scientists think that these might be the dark matter that holds galaxies together today. They are theoretical, so we don't know for sure, but that's what scientists think. Next are stellar mass black holes. These black holes are commonly formed through supernovas, and they're the type that most people know about. Their mass ranges from 2 to 150 times the mass of the sun. Next are intermediate mass black holes. These black holes haven't been discovered yet. However, if they do exist, scientists estimate them to be around the size of the Earth. Next are supermassive black holes. These black holes commonly form at the center of galaxies. Their radii ranges from 0.001 to 400 astronomical units. For context, 1 astronomical unit equals to the distance between the Sun and the Earth, which is around 93 million miles. Next are ultramassive black holes. These black holes aren't an actual category for black holes, however many scientists consider them as a subset of supermassive black holes. Their mass ranges from 10 to the power of 9 to 10 to the power of 11 times the mass of the Sun, and their radii goes above 1,000 astronomical units. Now out to address the formation of supermassive black holes. Now you may be wondering, why can't supermassive black holes form the same way as stellar mass black holes through a supernova? Well, the reason for this is that they simply would not have had enough time to grow so big, as they would have started off smaller than the size of the Earth. Now, scientists for this reason have been coming up with different theories about how supermassive black holes could have formed. One of the most prominent and convincing ones out of these theories is that of black hole stars. Now, the idea is that early in the universe, everything was very dense, and gas clouds were right next to each other.
Thus, when stars formed, they were very massive. They were so massive that their cores collapsed into a black hole, but the rest of the stars still survived. Add to this, the star began feeding the black hole lots and lots of mass. So much mass that the black hole emitted radiation that went against the gravity of the star. This created a deadly balance, sort of like the hydrostatic equilibrium I was explaining earlier. However, finally, after about 400 million years, the black hole consumed the entirety of the star and a supermassive black hole was formed. Next, I want to discuss a concept that is crucial to not only understanding black holes, but gravity in general. This is how space and time are interconnected. Now, to better help explain this, I want to use the help of a formula. In this formula, the speed of light is the constant. When you multiply time times the speed of light, you get distance. This shows that time and space are connected to the speed of light. Now, the reason this is so important is because Einstein used this concept to create his theory of relativity, in which he describes how gravity works. In this theory of relativity, he mentioned a concept called the space-time fabric. Now, the space-time fabric is basically the playground of the universe. Anything with mass that goes onto the space-time fabric curves not only the space around it, but also the time, due to the fact that space and time are interconnected. Now, we can see this difference here on Earth as well. Right now, at your feet, time is going 1 billionth of a second slower than time in Earth's orbit. Now, I know this may be a bit confusing, and for that reason, I want to use the help of my model to help explain this. Now, as you see in this model, this piece of fabric is a space-time fabric. And this piece of weight represents any mass that goes onto the space-time fabric. Now, as you see right now, the space-time fabric is relatively straight. When I put this piece of mass onto the space-time fabric, as you can see, it is slightly warped. Now, the greater the mass, the more the space-time is warped. Near black holes, space-time is warped so much that space and time don't exist anymore. Now I have a joke. How did the black hole lose so much weight? It's simple. It's because he ate light. Next, how do black holes grow in size? Black holes grow in size through two fundamental processes. The first process is when black holes merge with other black holes, and the second process is during accretion, or the gathering of mass. Now, during both of these processes, the black hole's mass is increased and the event horizon, or the point of no return, becomes larger. Now, I have a question for you guys, the audience. What is this orange thing orbiting the black hole? That is called an accretion disk. Now, accretion disks are fundamentally particles that are orbiting the black hole. Now, you may be wondering, why can't black holes consume the matter directly? And why do the particles spin around the black hole? Well, to understand this, we have to look at the stars that later become black holes. These stars are constantly spinning and have angular momentum. Now, when these stars collapse into black holes, the black holes inherit that angular momentum and thus are spinning. Thus, when particles come near a black hole, they also start spinning. Now, when these particles in the accretion disk collide with each other, they heat up the accretion disk to millions of degrees Fahrenheit, and sometimes give off lights brighter than whole galaxies combined. Next, I want to discuss Hawking radiation. This idea was created by Stephen Hawking. The idea is that in space, in the vacuum of space, the space is not truly empty. However, it is filled with several quantum fluctuations of virtual particles constantly appearing and disappearing. Now, when this occurs at the event horizon of a black hole, as you can see, one of these particles is able to escape. Now, what this means is that this particle is able to carry away some of the black hole's mass with it. What this means for black holes is that this describes how they can eventually fade out. Now,
one of the problem with Hawking radiation was that it created the information paradox. Now, to better understand the information paradox, we have to understand what information means in scientific terms. Information means the arrangement of particles. Now, when information falls into a black hole and black hole evaporate due to Hawking radiation, scientists are questioning, where does the information go? If the information were to be lost or destroyed, it would violate one of the most fundamental laws of quantum mechanics, which is the law of conservation. The law of conservation states that no information can be lost or destroyed. Now, scientists have been trying to solve this ever since that paradox has came about. However, one of the most convincing ones out of these theories is that the information is encoded in this virtual particle that escapes. Thus, information is scattered. It is not lost or destroyed. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Hello, my name is Esther, and I'm going to be talking about Norals. First, where do they live? They live in the Arctic Ocean and Greenland of Norway and Russia. And they live in groups and families, and when they are groups, they make noises together. And they also hunt together. Next, what do they eat? Narwhals eat fish, shrimp, and squids. Next, what is their tusk for? Their tusk is to kill their prey and to catch food so they can eat it. They use their tusk to feel and hear, and they also use it to talk to each other, to communicate. And next, we're going to be talking about why they cannot live in zoos. They cannot live in zoos because in the Arctic Ocean, they provide their own food there, and in the zoos, they cannot provide their own food to hunt. And when in the zoo, they can't do things that they do in the Arctic Ocean, so that's why they cannot live in the zoo. Next, we're going to be talking about baby Norals. Baby Norals, when they have a small tooth, when it's in the bottom of its mouth, it grows it up to the lip, and when it touches the lip, it starts coming out of the front of it. Some of the males have 2 tusks, and all males have 1 tusk. So, rarely you find females with a tusk. And when you know it's a female, it doesn't have a tusk. And when the mom has a baby, she always protects it from its enemies coming to try to kill. And right here, I have a model of a narwhal, and these are the waves. And also, narwhals help people with several things, like with their tusk. They use it for like crafting and weapons, and that's what Eskimos use for weapons. And this is the end of my presentation.
Hello, my name is Pitani, and I will talk about all my families and then on the trip we went. I was 9 years old. My dad named Mulugeta, our mom, Ziki, and then my siblings are He, Up to It, and Rodas. And then my dad surprised us, and then after that we went to the car, and then after that I went to the car, and then I went to the airports, and then when I went to the airport, I went to the airplane, and then got the ticket. I get the ticket from the airplane, and then I saw the biggest hotel, and then here are the pictures, and then I went to slept, and then after that, one day, it was in the morning, I woke up, and then after that we went to the beach and have a lot of fun, and I saw a lot of turtles and everything. And we went to the boat and sat under the water, the ocean, and we saw all the animals. Sea animals. And then after that, we went to the food restaurant, and then it was good. One day, I went to the soft, it's really soft beach that was so warm and hot, and I go to the hotel room and sleep. The next day I got some ice cream and a small train. I also saw a baby kitten running around the plane. Here's a picture. And after that, I went to the mall and then I got a good dress. We went back to the hotel room. After 6 days, me and my families went back to the airport. I went to get a car. Not me, but my dad. After 7 hours, I came back home. Here's pictures. And thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Rodas, and we'll be learning about peacocks. Peacocks are the most prettiest. Peacocks are the most prettiest and brightest bird ever. They have their feathers are bright and long. They're very pretty too. Male peacocks are mostly prettier than the female peacocks, and their feathers, they have circles that look like eyes, and this is what they look like. Peacocks usually live to 10 to 25 years, but they can live to 50 years if they're well cared for from their owners. And if they don't get cared that much, then they could die. Peacocks can also fly because they're birds. And they look like their colors are green, gold, and blue. That's their bright colors. And female peacocks have colors that are brown, and they blend into bushes and other stuff that are brown and outside. When a predator comes near, the female peacock blends in with her babies, so that the predator can't find her because she blends in. And the male peacock tries to get the predator's attention and runs, so that the predator, like a fox, can't get it, and then when it runs away and it flies, so that the predator can get hurt. And this is how it looks like when they're flying. And another picture of them about to spread their feathers. And male peacocks, before they spread their feathers, they make a sound before they do it, so that they can get the lady's attention, so that they look how pretty they are. And then one of them has to be like part of the family, so that they can meet and make a family too. And peacocks live in India, in Asia, and parts of Asia and Africa. And this is what my peacock looks like. And this is what my peacock looks like. Oh, and peacock Peacocks eat seeds and other small birds. And that'll be all for my project.
Hi, my name is Albert, and I will talk about all about the things in my house and what they do. Here's a photo of my house that I drew yesterday. What makes a happy house is that wife. You need a wife each other and respect one another by helping one another. The hardest things was sketching. My house has a barn roof and a red cherry, and the doors weighted. And underneath that are the one which August that are green. And over here in the top corner, as you can see, was the sun. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Isaac. Today we're learning about monkeys. Monkeys live in tropical and subtropical regions, and monkeys live on Africa and Asia and in South America. And number two, while most monkeys are tree dwelling, some monkeys are ground dwelling, and some monkeys swing on trees. When monkeys swing on trees, and they swing on trees for like they swing fast. And number three, monkeys display a fascinating behavior. And number four, monkeys can live up to 40 years. Monkeys live up to 40 years from 10, and some live from 10 to 40 years. And monkeys when monkeys play with behavior. And number over here, monkey is a common name that may refer to its meaning. And the Japanese monkey lives in colder places. And monkeys are generally omnivores. Which means they eat both meat and plants. And they consume fruits, seeds, leaves, plants, and insects. And monkeys have different colors, which are brown, gray, or black. And monkeys have there are many different kinds of monkeys. And the biggest monkey in the world is a mandrill. And monkeys are mammals that swing. And the biggest monkey in the world is a mandrill. Thank you for listening to my presentation. It's the end. I hope you know anything about monkeys.
Hi, my name is Isaiah, and today I'll be talking about lion information. Lions are a large social cats known as the king of the jungle, and they primarily inhabit grasslands and savannas. Lionesses do the hunting for the pride because the male lions have to keep the lookout for the pride. A pride means a group of lions, and the group of lions could only be about 30 or 40 lions. There's some interesting facts about lions. The first fact is that lions' roar could be heard over 5 miles, and the second fact is the lion's speed could be over 50 miles per hour. Lions are so cool to learn about. Thank you for listening to my lion presentation.
Hello, my name is Luam, and today I'll be presenting about tigers. Tigers are one of the most largest wild cats with muscular bodies, heads, and paws and long tails. Their orange fur is marked with black stripes that are usually vertical. Native to Asia, they range from Russia. In the jungle, they primarily eat meat and drink water. As apex predators, they are carnivores, and their diet consists mainly of large ungulates like deer, wild boar, and other mammals. Tigers are one of the most well-known and recognizable wild animals out there, so it's incredibly devastating that they're endangered. Now I'm going to be talking my facts about tigers. Tigers are the largest wild cats. They are good swimmers, and they are carnivores, eating only meat. They are solitary hunters, generally searching for food alone at night. What do tigers drink and eat? Tigers drink blood and drink water. And tigers usually eat wild bear, water buffaloes, pigs, snakes, fishes, and other kinds of animals. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Hi, my name's Adya, and I'm going to be talking about dolphins. Dolphins have good social skill and unique communication method. Dolphins are fast swimmers. Dolphins can swim up to 30 miles per hour. Dolphins' life. Dolphins can live several years or 50 years or more. Dolphins are carnivores. Carnivores are animals that only eat meat. Dolphins typically eat fish and squid. Dolphins are marine mammals and not fish. Pink dolphins. Pink dolphins are also called Amazon River dolphins or bodos. They only live in fresh waters. Fun fact, pink dolphins are the rarest type of dolphin. Dolphins are the most intelligent and playful sea mammal. Dolphins are warm-blooded and only live in groups. Unique sleep. Dolphins sleep with half the brain at a time, allowing them to stay alert from danger. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Hello, my name is Samuel. Today we're going to be learning about cheetahs. First of all, we're going to learn about where the cheetahs live in the wild. Cheetahs live in Africa, and in Asia they are extinct with almost all cheetahs gone, including springboks and ampala and gazelle. And next up, we're going to learn about what do cheetahs eat. Cheetahs eat small animals of rabbits, game birds, and antelopes. Antelopes are like big deers. Next up, we're going to learn about what is the cheetah's period. The cheetah's period is 3 months, and a female cheetah borns to 2 to 8 cubs. Next up, we're going to learn about what is the lifespan of a cheetah. The lifespan of a cheetah is in the wild is 7 years, and after the 7 years they have 8 to 12 years in captivity. And next up, we're gonna learn about how fast can cheetahs run. Cheetahs are measured by 71 miles per hour. They are reach of a of a 50 to 62 per hour. Next up, we're gonna learn about how long is cheetahs. Cheetahs have a long, slender body, slender body measuring to 1.2 meters and 4 feet with a long tail of 55 to 85. Next up, we're gonna learn about cheetahs are the black spot of cheetahs. Cheetahs are covered with black spots everywhere, entirely with small black spots. And on the background of a pale have a white underbelly. That's the end of my presentation.
Hello, my name is Yossi, and we're going to talk about the blue ring octopus. The blue ring octopus is more than central than any dwelling animals. The blue ring octopus are extremely small, than to 1 to 3 inches, and they eat crustaceans like lobsters, fish, and crabs, and they live in the shallow waters in the Pacific oceans, and they live in like Arpa, Japan, Solomon City, Island, and they also live with the shells, with the cracked open shells, with the bottle cans, and they live in the range rather is smallest, and they have so many blue ring octopus all around the world or the earth, and they are rather they can bite you, and they can get the black ink out of your mouth. And this is the end of my and they live in model, and this is a blue ring octopus model, and this is my presentation.
My name is Ira. Hello, hi. My name is Felicity Yan. Hi, my name is Reedy. Our presentation is about the solar system. Sun. The sun is a big, bright ball of hot gas. It is like a giant light bulb in the sky that gives us light and heat. Without it, we would not have day or night or even life on Earth. Mercury. Mercury is the small planet in the solar system. Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. It is small and rocky, kind of like our moon. It gets super hot during the day and super cold during the night. Venus is the second planet from the sun and is often called Earth's sister. 11 persons on Venus will have their spacesuit fall off and have their neck hurt, and so now it's time for the next one. Hi, my name is Riddhi. About Earth. Earth is where we live. There's more than halfway covered with water and less than halfway covered with land. There is so many countries in the Earth. There's 50 countries in the United States about Mars. Mars is very red. Mars is red because there's red sand covered on it. There's also volcanoes in Mars. It's still cold even it has volcanoes in it. It is because the volcanoes stopped erupting.
Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system. It's made mostly of gas and has big colorful clouds and a famous red spot.
Saturn is one of the most lightest planets in the solar system, and when you try to land on it, you'll just keep falling down. And it's one of the most lightest planets. That means that if there was an ocean big enough for it, then it will float like a feather. Uranus is the second last planet. It has the rings that instead of going side to side like Saturn, it goes up and down like up and down. And the rings are made out of sand. I mean like dirt and sand. And it like the planet of the Uranus, the ball Uranus, looks like it's made out of shining white diamonds, but it's not made out of shining white diamonds. It's just made out of gas. It's so far away from Neptune, and there's not even one planet between Uranus and Neptune. Neptune is one of the has the most fastest winds in the solar system, and it has over 12 tornado storms. That's the end of our presentation.
Thank you for watching our presentation.
Thank you.